Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. We've got a really fascinating pile of research here on biotech.
Yeah, lots to dig into.
Looks like you guys really want to get into this world.
Definitely.
We've got excerpts from this Italian analysis. Investire nel settore biotech, un'analisi critica nell'era post-pandemica.
Okay.
Investing in the biotech sector, a critical analysis in the post-pandemic era. So
Right.
we've got that. We've got some journal articles, some industry reports, even some regulatory guidelines.
Oh.
So clearly, we're going to be trying to go beyond just the hype and really understand the forces that are shaping biotech today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that jumps out right away is just the sheer scale of this industry.
Right.
We're talking a global market that's exceeding $1.2 trillion. But,
Wow.
as this Italian analysis points out, that kind of explosive growth has led to a concentration of power.
I see.
And, the top 10 companies control something like 65% of the market share.
65%, that's a huge chunk. Now, it makes you wonder about the potential downsides to all this biotech boom.
Yeah.
Is there a point where this consolidation actually stifles competition? Limits the diversity of the research that's being done?
Yeah, it's a valid concern. And I think when you have that much influence concentrated in the hands of a few companies, it can definitely shape the research agenda,
Right.
potentially prioritizing things that are more profit-driven as opposed to, maybe addressing more critical healthcare needs that might not be as commercially viable.
I see.
A good example of this is Pfizer's acquisition of Seagen back in 2023.
Okay.
It was a $43 billion deal, very lucrative, obviously.
Yeah.
But it really sparked this debate about whether these kinds of mergers actually benefit patients or if they're really just about consolidating corporate power.
Yeah, it's like who ultimately gets to decide which diseases get prioritized for treatment? Are we talking purely scientific decisions here? Or are there other factors like market size and potential return on investment creeping in?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think the COVID-19 pandemic really brought this whole issue into sharp focus.
Yeah, it was a pivotal moment for sure.
Absolutely. And I think, the rapid development and deployment of the mRNA vaccines.
Right.
I mean, while undeniably a scientific triumph, it also exposed some potential vulnerabilities within the industry.
It's true. It was a pivotal moment, but also a controversial one.
Oh, yeah.
The reclassification of those mRNA products, I mean, there were personalized cancer therapies before that,
Right.
but they got reclassified to vaccines, which allowed them to be approved really quickly.
Exactly.
But that raised eyebrows for some people.
Sure.
Was this just a necessary move in a global health crisis?
Mm.
Or did we potentially compromise some established safety protocols? Did we create some loopholes?
Yeah, and the Italian analysis actually suggests that, this move potentially blurred the lines between traditional vaccines and gene therapies,
I see.
which raises some questions about transparency and the long-term implications.
So were certain aspects of the approval process expedited, maybe a little too hastily?
Right.
And how does this reclassification affect how we approach, like, developing and regulating future gene-based therapies?
Yeah, those are some really important questions.
There are some really thought-provoking questions.
Absolutely.
And it makes you think, in the rush to develop these life-saving treatments, I mean, where do we draw the line?
Right.
How do we make sure that scientific progress doesn't come at the expense of having really rigorous safety standards and ethical considerations?
Absolutely. And this actually brings us to another critical aspect of the biotech landscape,
Okay.
which is the inherent risk associated with developing these novel therapies.
Mm.
I mean, the journey from, the lab bench to the patient bedside, it's fraught with uncertainty. And the fate of a lot of these companies rests on what are called these binary events.
Okay, you keep using this term binary events, but can you break that down for me? What exactly are we talking about?
Okay, so imagine you've got a biotech company
Okay.
that's pouring all of its resources into developing this single groundbreaking treatment. Years of research, millions of dollars invested, everything riding on this one product.
Right.
Then the results of a crucial clinical trial come out.
Oh, wow.
It's a make or break moment, right? It's a binary event.
I see.
Either the trial succeeds
Right.
and, it paves the way for potential approval, commercialization, or
Yeah.
it fails and the company potentially goes into a tailspin.
So it's like a high-stakes gamble where the outcome can really dramatically impact the future of this company.
Yeah, Absolutely. And a perfect example of this.
Give me an example.
Remember Ionovia? They were developing this new technology for treating eye conditions, and the CEO was even, publicly buying up stocks,
Okay.
super bullish on it, but then
Yeah.
their chaperone trial failed.
Oh, wow.
And the stock plunged, over 70%, almost overnight.
Wow.
Really stark reminder that even with what seems like solid fundamentals,
Right.
and you've got insider confidence, these investments can be incredibly volatile.
That's a good point.
It really underscores the need for investors to look beyond just the surface level due diligence.
Yeah.
It's not just about crunching numbers. You've got to understand the science,
Yeah.
assess the regulatory pathway,
Okay.
evaluate those potential risks associated with these binary events.
Yeah, for sure. So it's fascinating, right? Even with all these positive signs, so much inherent risk in biotech.
Definitely.
It's just a constant reminder that you're dealing with really cutting edge science.
Yeah.
The path to success is rarely linear.
Right.
Speaking of groundbreaking science, I kind of want to shift gears a little bit and talk about gene therapy.
Okay.
I mean, this area has really exploded in recent years.
Yeah.
We're seeing new therapies being approved at an unprecedented rate.
It's true. It's really remarkable how gene therapy's kind of gone from this fringe area of research
Yeah,
to the forefront of medicine.
totally.
We're now at this point where we can potentially cure diseases that we once thought were incurable.
It's incredible.
It is incredible, but with any revolutionary technology,
Uh-huh.
this rapid progress also brings some unique challenges,
Well,
particularly when it comes to regulation.
Right, because we're not just talking about treating symptoms anymore. We're talking about potentially modifying a person's DNA.
Exactly.
I mean, that raises a whole other set of questions about safety, about ethics, about long-term consequences.
Yeah.
Did our existing regulatory frameworks even anticipate this level of scientific advancement?
Yeah, that's a key point the Italian analysis brings up.
Okay.
They actually use the recent approval of Casgevy,
Okay.
which is this gene therapy for sickle cell anemia,
Right.
to kind of illustrate this point.
Okay.
It is this incredible breakthrough, offering hope to patients who, previously had really limited treatment options,
Yeah.
but it comes with a really hefty price tag.
Okay.
We're talking over $2 million per treatment.
Wow.
And so it raises some serious concerns about access and equity.
So we're on the verge of solving some of humanity's most challenging medical problems, but then we run into these economic barriers.
Right.
Who can actually afford these life-saving therapies, and how do we make sure these advancements benefit everyone,
Right.
not just a select few?
These are big questions,
Yeah.
complex ethical and societal questions that we as a global community really need to be grappling with.
For sure.
And I think the whole debate surrounding mRNA technology really adds another layer of complexity here. It's where do we draw the line between gene therapy and other forms of medical intervention?
Right.
It's getting kind of blurry,
Yeah, it's getting really blurry.
which has, big implications for how we regulate this stuff.
Yeah.
How we price it, how accessible it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if the science is moving faster than our ability to fully grasp the implications.
Yeah,
Both the positive and the negative ones.
it's true.
And it's interesting, this blurring of lines isn't just limited to human health.
Right.
Biotech is making some serious waves in agriculture as well.
Absolutely. GMOs have been a hot topic for years, but
Right.
gene editing is kind of a game changer.
Okay.
It allows scientists to make these very precise modifications to an organism's DNA.
I see.
So it's a much more targeted approach than traditional GMO techniques.
Okay.
And it offers the potential to develop crops that are more resistant to diseases, that require less water, and that ultimately yield more food.
So are we talking about a future where gene editing could actually help solve global food security challenges? I mean, that sounds like a potential solution to some really pressing problems.
It does, but I think, as with any powerful technology, we have to proceed cautiously.
Right.
We're still learning about the long-term effects of gene editing.
Yeah.
And, there's always a risk of unintended consequences,
For sure.
especially when it comes to things like ecological balance and biodiversity.
It seems like every breakthrough in biotech opens this Pandora's box
Kind of.
of new questions and challenges.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, in our quest for all this progress, how do we strike the right balance between innovation and responsibility? How do we harness the power of these technologies for good
Right.
while also mitigating the potential risks.
Yeah, and that's really where the role of regulation becomes absolutely
It's in the
critical.
regulation.
Yeah, but even with robust regulations in place,
Oh,
there's always the risk of what's called regulatory capture.
okay. Regulatory capture. Explain that one to me. It sounds kind of ominous.
It is, so it's this scenario where, like, regulatory agencies
Okay.
who are supposed to be protecting the public interest
Right.
become too closely aligned with the industries they're supposed to be regulating.
Oh, interesting.
And so instead of acting as these independent watchdogs,
Right.
they end up kind of prioritizing the interests of these companies,
Mm-hmm.
potentially at the expense of public health and safety.
So instead of serving as these safeguards, the regulatory bodies almost become complicit
Right.
in a system that puts profit before people.
Yeah, and the Italian analysis actually highlights a few instances
Okay.
where this has happened within the biotech sector.
Interesting.
They even point to the Theranos scandal as a cautionary tale.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, they claim to have revolutionized blood testing,
Ah.
but their technology didn't even work.
Right.
Massive fraud. And
Yeah.
the fact that they operated for so long undetected really raises some questions
Yeah, it does.
about the effectiveness of oversight.
Right, right.
It's just a stark reminder that even in a field as promising as biotech,
Yeah,
you're going to have bad actors,
sure.
people driven by greed who are willing to cut corners, deceive investors,
Right.
and ultimately, put the public at risk.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like vigilance and scrutiny are essential here.
Oh, absolutely.
Investors and the public alike
Yes.
need to be critical, informed, and maybe a little bit skeptical.
Definitely.
Don't just take everything at face value.
Right.
Do your research, ask the tough questions,
Uh-huh.
and demand transparency.
I think that's, really important advice.
Yeah, words to live by.
Yeah.
But I think it's also especially important to be aware of how financial markets are influencing biotech research.
Right.
Earlier, we talked about this pressure that companies are facing to prioritize ventures that are profit-driven.
Yeah.
So how does that dynamic actually play out in the context of, like, investment and trading?
So I think that the pressure to deliver those quick returns
Yeah.
for investors can often distort the research priorities.
Okay.
Companies might feel compelled to focus on developing treatments for diseases that are, more likely to generate revenue,
Right.
even if there are more urgent healthcare needs that are being neglected.
So it's that age-old conflict, profit versus purpose.
It is.
But what about the investors who actually want to support ethical and impactful biotech companies?
Mm.
I mean, are there ways to align their investments with their values in this really complex landscape?
There are. Investors have more and more options available to them these days.
Okay.
One approach is to invest in these exchange-traded funds or ETFs that specialize in biotech.
Okay.
These funds, what they do is they pool money from multiple investors
Right.
to buy a basket of biotech stocks, which helps to diversify the risk
Okay.
and potentially, align with specific investment goals.
So instead of picking individual companies and trying to navigate the complexities of those binary events, investors can kind of opt for this more diversified approach through ETFs.
Exactly.
But how do you choose the right ETF? I mean, there's got to be hundreds of them out there.
You're right. The ETF landscape can definitely be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But with some careful research, you can find funds that, really align with your interests and your risk tolerance.
Okay.
Some ETFs focus on very specific subsectors of biotech, like genomics or immunotherapy. Others kind of take a broader approach.
Okay.
And they invest in a wider range of companies.
So you have to decide as an investor,
Right.
do I want to focus on a particular niche within biotech?
Yeah.
Or do I want to cast a wider net across the entire industry?
Exactly. But beyond just the investment focus,
Yeah.
there's a few other factors investors should consider.
Like what?
Like the fund's track record.
Okay.
How has it performed in the past? What kind of returns has it generated? And, how has it weathered market volatility?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also, fees are really important.
Okay.
ETFs charge what's called an expense ratio,
Good.
which covers their management costs.
Right.
Make sure that expense ratio is reasonable,
Yeah.
not going to be eating into your returns.
It seems like there's a lot to consider when choosing a biotech ETF.
Definitely.
It's not as simple as just, picking one and hoping for the best.
It's not.
But if you do your homework
Yeah.
and you choose wisely, these ETFs can be a great way to participate in the growth of this exciting sector.
Absolutely.
potentially while aligning your investments with your values and your goals.
Exactly.
We've covered a lot of ground so far in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've explored the potential and the pitfalls of gene therapy, the rise of gene editing in agriculture, the challenges of regulatory capture,
Right.
and now the ins and outs of actually investing in biotech.
Yeah.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle I think we need to examine,
Right.
the role of AI in biotech. Let's take a quick pause, and when we return, we'll delve into this fascinating world of artificial intelligence
Sounds good.
and its impact on this dynamic industry. Welcome back. It's been quite a journey so far,
It has.
unpacking the complexities of this biotech world,
Yeah.
from those groundbreaking therapies to the ethical questions that they pose.
Absolutely.
But, we got to face it, none of these innovations would be possible without that financial fuel
Right.
driving this whole industry, like the investment and the trading.
Yeah.
It's an aspect that often gets overlooked,
Definitely.
but it's absolutely crucial to understanding how this ecosystem works.
You're absolutely right. I mean, developing these new therapies is a very long
Yeah,
and costly process. It demands a lot of financial backing
right.
to go through those clinical trials, navigate all those regulatory hurdles, and
Right.
ultimately bring these innovations to market.
It's a real balancing act
It is.
between the scientific progress and then just the market realities.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's not just about, brilliant scientists in the lab.
No.
It's also about venture capitalists, IPOs,
Right.
navigating the oftentimes turbulent waters of the stock market.
Definitely.
So it sounds like a pretty high-stakes game,
It is.
especially with those binary events that you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. And those binary events, things like, clinical trial results,
Right.
regulatory approvals, major partnership announcements,
Yeah.
those can really make or break a company.
Wow.
I mean, a single positive outcome can send a company's stock soaring, while a setback can lead to this dramatic plunge.
Oh, wow.
So it's this world where fortunes are won and lost
Right.
based on scientific data and market sentiment.
It sounds like for biotech investors, you really need nerves of steel
You do?
and a very deep understanding of both the science and just the market dynamics.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you even begin to assess the potential of a company that's operating in such a volatile and unpredictable landscape?
Well, the Italian analysis we've been discussing really emphasizes that you have to look beyond those traditional financial metrics.
Okay.
It's not just about analyzing like profit margins
Yeah.
and revenue projections.
Uh-huh.
You've got to understand the underlying science,
Okay.
the regulatory pathway,
Yeah.
the competitive landscape, even the ethical implications of the research.
Yeah.
So it's a much more holistic approach to the investment analysis.
It's interesting. It's like connecting the dots
It is.
between the scientific innovation,
Yeah.
the market potential,
Uh-huh.
and then like the societal impact.
Yeah, it's complex.
But with so much data out there,
Right.
so many factors to consider, it sounds pretty daunting, even for a seasoned investor.
It can be, but that's actually where artificial intelligence is starting to play this transformative role.
AI. Okay.
Yeah, AI algorithms can analyze these massive data. So
Right.
everything from clinical trial data and scientific publications to patent filings and market trends
I see.
to identify those really promising investment opportunities.
Okay.
Then also to assess those potential risks.
So AI is like this superpowered research assistant, I guess,
Kind of, yeah.
helping investors cut through all that noise,
Right.
make more informed decisions.
Yeah.
But it sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, AI definitely offers incredible potential, but you got to remember it's a tool, not a crystal ball, so it can provide valuable insights.
Yeah.
But it's still up to the human investors to interpret those insights,
Yeah.
weigh the risks and rewards, and ultimately make the judgments.
Right.
So that human element,
Yeah.
with all of its intuition and experience,
Right.
still remains really essential.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Yeah.
But the Italian analysis also points to a fascinating trend, I think.
Oh, yeah.
The rise of Asia,
Okay.
particularly China, is this major player in the biotech AI landscape.
Right.
So what's driving this shift in the global balance of power?
Well, there's a few factors at play here. I mean, China has access to huge amounts of data.
Right.
They have these very aggressive investment strategies, and there's a growing pool of AI talent.
Okay.
So you combine all that,
Yeah.
it's creating this very dynamic and rapidly evolving biotech ecosystem that's attracting attention from investors worldwide.
It's a good point. It's a reminder that biotech isn't just like a scientific pursuit,
No.
but it's actually a global competition
It is.
with some significant economic and political dimension.
Absolutely.
And like any competition, there's going to be winners and losers.
Right.
So it seems the investors who can accurately assess the risks and the opportunities
Yeah.
will be the ones who are best positioned for success.
Definitely.
But let's zoom out for a sec. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We have.
You know, the promise of gene therapies, those complexities of regulation,
Uh-huh.
investment. It's a lot.
It is.
As we wrap up, like, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the main one is just that the biotech world is this fascinating and potentially transformative one.
Yeah.
But it's not for the passive observer. So whether you're a scientist, an investor, or just a curious citizen, it's really crucial to engage with this sector critically and ethically.
Oh, yeah.
And with a discerning eye.
Yeah, I like that.
Ask questions, demand transparency, and really consider the implications of these innovations.
Right.
Because the future of healthcare, agriculture, maybe even humanity is being shaped by these advancements happening in biotech right now.
That's a really powerful thought.
It is.
Well said. And remember, I think this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
This biotech world is constantly evolving.
Definitely.
With groundbreaking discoveries and new challenges always popping up.
It's true.
The only constant is change.
Right.
And those who can adapt,
Yes.
stay informed, and engage thoughtfully
Yes.
will be the ones shaping the future of this really dynamic and impactful field.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of biotech.
It's been fun.
Keep asking those questions, keep learning, and keep diving deep.